Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel. This is Business Connections Live with Steve Hyland.
Crikey, is it that time already again? Hello, welcome along. This is Business Connections Live, the program for entrepreneurs, SMEs and business owners. Now, on today's show, we're going to be talking about the Moscow method and how to sell yourself without selling. It's going to be a fascinating show. Back on the program again, Dexter Moscow. He's got a brand new book out, How to Sell Yourself Without Selling is the name of the book. That gives you a kind of a clue of why we're going to be talking to him about it today. Dexter, lovely to have you back on the show. Lovely to see you.
Thank you.
It's been a little while. For those people that don't know who Dexter Moscow is, apart from having the best name in the whole world.
And it is my real name. It's not a stage name.
It's not your stage name. So just give us a brief summary, your quick CV then, a little bit about you.
I started in advertising, which I think gave me my love of words. I then went into property, and I always hesitate to say I was an estate agent, you know. And I worked for some major companies, helping them to develop sites and various things like that. I didn't particularly like estate agency. I hated the duplicity of, you know, I've got an offer, can you match it or can you go higher? So I got out of there quite quickly, and a friend of mine asked me to present on QVC. And it shows you how long ago it was. They were video recorders. So, and that really...
In black and white.
Black, it's like pop black, do you remember that? And so, you know, from there, I started to develop processes. In fact, it's what's in the book, you mentioned the book. And so a lot of that has gone now into the corporate arena. And so I've written this book to help people not make the same mistakes that I've made. So that's my potted history.
It's an interesting area that you're talking about, because I always see TV sales when you're presenting on screen and direct sales when you're sitting in front of somebody has been something slightly different. Do you see it's been something different? Because I always felt that when I was presenting, you were bringing the objections up. You were both sides of the coin.
Yes.
You would bring the objections up, you would then get around the objections, and you would move forward yourself. You were having a sales conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
So you knew what was coming.
I think to a certain extent, the challenge, and you experienced it as well, is there you're selling to an invisible audience. So you have to do quite some research when you're presenting a product. What is going to appeal to that audience? And I think that is the same when you're sitting in front of somebody, or if you have an audience of one or many, you have to find out what is happening for them, what is that need. So, and I think now what's happened, you know, we said the book is How to Sell Without Selling, because people hate being sold to. They love being informed and they love being consulted. And so I think that that kind of research that happened with QVC, what is going to appeal to people, is the same kind of conversation that you're having in front of a client, a prospect, a customer.
It was interesting because you would look at inexperienced presenters and they would sell on features. And you still hear that. If you watch some of the lower value channels from America, they are selling features. It's got 400 of these, it's got 300 of those, it's got 5 of those, and it's got big red lights on it.
Yeah.
And that's of no benefit to anybody. And I still think we have conventional salespeople who are across a desk and they're still doing that.
Yes, and it's wrong. And I think that what has come out of the modern experience with the internet and with people being so well informed, the key here, and it's true of the commercial world, the corporate world, as it is in QVC, you have to make that emotional connection first of all. And the only way you can make that connection is by stories that illustrate experiences of others so that people will buy into that experience as well. So it's always about the logic of why should I buy that, features and benefit, but you have to understand the emotional aspect of why somebody would want it in the first place. Selling
the sizzle. I hear a lot of this now. I'm a member of the PSA, the Professional Speakers Association, which I think you are as well, aren't you?
No, do you know, I've never done that.
Come along. I'll bring you along one Saturday and we'll have a bit of a chat.
Right.
The thing that's interesting there is that they too you, as professional speakers, are saying the way to interact with your audience is by telling stories.
Yes.
The thing about telling a story when you're selling something, I've always felt, was that it is an aspirational story. You are placing the viewer in the story.
Yes.
And what you see is a lot of people tell stories about themselves. And it doesn't seem to resonate when it comes to selling the product.
Yes, I agree with that. There's a guy who, I think you know, Simon Sinek, who has developed a process which I think is absolutely right. What normally happens when somebody goes into a selling situation, they say what they do, how they do it, and why they do it. Now, Simon Sinek has turned that on its head and said, first of all, why do you do what you do? And what is the benefit to people of doing what you do? So I always say that the reason that I continue to do what I do is I love to see that light bulb moment when somebody really gets it and can understand what the benefit is. And so I think that's the twist that has taken. The normal sales method doesn't work anymore. Why do I do it? Why am I passionate? And what is the pain that you're suffering that my intervention can take away? And I think once you make that, and it's emotional, again, when you do that, then you can lead them and discuss what their needs are.
One of the areas that I always felt when we were doing direct response television was linear storytelling. And I see this a lot where you start at the beginning, once upon a time, you tell the story, and then you get the conclusion at the end. And I always felt that when you were doing shopping telly, that you start at the end.
Yes.
Here's the big close. That's what it's all about. It's a bit like the headline of a story.
Yes.
There's the headline. This is why you really want it, and here's what you get, and here's all the bits and pieces behind it. So it's a bit like if you were the more traditional way that you would write a newspaper story. Big headline, first paragraph tells you the story, next paragraph a bit more detail, next paragraph even more detail. And a lot of people, we are a nation that will tell linear stories.
Yes.
We start at the beginning, we work our way to the end.
And you know, I think that's part of the problem. And again, it's one of the reasons I bought the book, wrote the book, is because
you bought the book.
I bought the book.
The secret's out.
And I've sent it
didn't
out.
write a word.
Actually, the interesting thing is that it's a lot of case study. So it's the experience that I've had working with various companies, large companies and small companies, and the rules are the same. Not only do you have to be able to communicate with people, but you have to be able to give them examples. And the key here is about what is going on for them. It's never about I know what's happening in your business, and they nod their head and say, yes, that's right, that's what's happening in our business. It's about them then looking at you and say, do you know, I never realised that. I never thought of that. So it's giving them information that is really relevant to them. And it is about those stories, but how do you start and how do you finish? A lot of people who are in presentation and pitching and situations like that know the middle bit. They know what their topic is. But how do you start with that headline so that it engages people? And how do you finish with a proper call to action? And you know that the corporate situation and the television situation is the same. You still have to entertain people. Whether you're selling yourself a product, and I say yourself because it works in an interview situation as well. If people buy into you, then they're willing to listen to what you say.
It's always a real problem, isn't it? By the way, let me just show you the book as well. It's called The Moscow Method, How to Sell Yourself Without Selling. The book is available on Amazon. On Amazon. It's available on Amazon. It says on the back, I shall read what it says on the back of the book. That way you fill you in. Today is not enough to be excellent at what you do. You must be a master communicator. People buy people, and face-to-face communication is an essential skill. If you've avoided standing up to present to your executive colleagues or potential customers, you're missing a golden opportunity. Yes. It's very different what we do when we're standing up in a studio. It's very different what we're doing here, in fact, isn't it? Yes. When you're standing up in front of your colleagues, you're being judged. A lot of people would rather die, wouldn't they, than stand up in front of their colleagues to do public speaking. What advice would you have for them? As I've said there, if you are invited to speak to your colleagues, then if you refuse it, if you duck it, or give the opportunity to somebody else, then that can damage your career prospects. So my advice to them is, don't duck it,
understand what that audience was. Present yourself in a different way. I worked many years ago, I worked with a dour Scotsman. And he was quite dour, his delivery was dour. And he had to make a presentation to his colleagues so that they would buy into what he was proposing. And that was, he wanted to work with their contacts so that he could up his fees for the company. And if he'd have gone down the normal track, they would have kind of yawned and perhaps wouldn't have bought into him. What we did, knowing that he was quite dour, we didn't use PowerPoint. I have a thing about PowerPoint, which we
you love it? You can't do it, have enough slides?
I hate it, because it's the lazy person's way of presenting. And also you miss the eye-to-eye contact with your audience. So how do you know if you're losing them? But that's another topic. But with this particular guy, he had to show himself as being different. Something different was going to happen. So I asked that he be invited to the front of the room. He had about 12 colleagues in the room. He was invited to the front of the room, and so somebody bragged on his behalf. He eyeballed his audience. He went to a flip chart and wrote £3 million. And he turned to them and he said, "That is what you're going to help me achieve." And then he went, how?
And then he went into the detail,
yes.
Into the how.
Yes.
Love that. Listen, hold the thought. On this particular programme, we're looking at the Moscow method. We haven't even touched on it yet, but if you're not familiar with the Moscow method, MOSCOW, of course, but what do each of those letters stand for? So it's been nicely thought through, this as well. We're going to be looking at how to create, structure, prepare, and deliver that all-winning sales meeting that you're going to have in the future. My guest of today's show is Dexter Moscow. We're looking at the Moscow method and how to sell without yourself without selling. Still to come on this edition of Business Connections Live. Lovely to have your company as always. Here we are, we're live on a Monday, and thank you very much for joining us. It's great to know that you're there. Last week's show was a cracking show as well. We were looking at online courses. Ever done any of those?
I have actually, yes.
Yeah?
They can be very useful. There's some brilliant sources
have you
out
made
there.
one, or have you bought one?
I'm actually in the process of creating one.
Now this is interesting. So which platform are you going to stick it on?
There's Udemy, which I understand
Udemy?
Yeah, Udemy, thank you.
Yeah.
And
I'm an expert on this, you know.
Really?
There's Udemy, there's Teachables, which is another one.
Right.
And then you've got the daddy of them at the moment, which is Kajabi.
Right, then you and I need to have a chat.
Yeah, we need to have a bit of a chat about that. That's what we were talking about last week. We had Steve Mills on the program. We were talking about putting together online training courses. Strangely, it's like buses, really. When you start talking about this, you see a whole host of people coming along doing the same thing. A guy called Mike Blissett, I also saw a presentation that he did where he was talking about how he's achieved success using Kajabi as a platform as well. But as I said, there are a number out there. There's Kajabi, which has got, you can nearly build a website around it. It's got a CRM inside of it. It's got all those kind of things. You've got Teachables, a bit of a cheaper option, but will allow you to put together beautiful online training courses. And then you've got the likes of Udemy as well that take a little bit more of the cut. But if you want to make real money, how do you start? How do you go out there? How do you sell the course? How do you make it something that's going to make you that passive income that we're all looking for? Money while you're sleeping is what people are dreaming of. And when you get to our age, that's what you're looking for, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's the pension, isn't it?
Both of us, that's the pension. What's one of those, I ask? I tell you what, let's look back at what happened in last week's edition with Steve Mills on Business Connections Live. Now, joining me in the studio today is Steve Mills, an old friend of the programme, in fact, joining us once again on the show. And today we're going to be talking about how to create and publish an online training course.
I think that, you know, for 25 years now, I've been out there in the field, you know, running training courses and advising people and so on. And essentially, that's all about, in my industry anyway, exchanging time for money. But these days, you know, there are fantastic opportunities using the internet and these online membership websites where I can take my years of experience, I can upload that experience into video, turn it into an online program, and then, as you suggested in your intro, benefit for that for literally ever. So I'm earning money literally while I sleep. It's very easy to think, you know, if there are people watching who are trainers, advisors, consultants, people like that, they can easily turn their expertise expertise into an online training program. But I think you need to sort of look a little bit outside the box and think, you know, if you're a chef, could you take your skills and expertise and demonstrate it online and train people in how to cook as good as you? If you're a landscape gardener, could you teach your expertise to people all over the world? And so I think it applies to almost, I think, any industry. If you don't know what to do and how to do it, then yeah, you know, that is an issue. I mean, when I first started doing this, I used to just send out I've got a membership site, program which people get a weekly video, and I started off just literally emailing them a link to the YouTube video that was on YouTube, that was hidden on YouTube so people couldn't see it. So I was doing it in a very basic way, but still was successful with it. But I recently decided to take it to another level, and if we're going to do this, Steve, then let's do it professionally. So here we've got my LinkedIn online course. So you can see here we've got a training course that's divided into sections. There's the sort of introduction to it, your vision, your objectives, a little bit about me, a welcome to the course for people. Then we go into Unit 1, which is all about looking good on LinkedIn, crowd development and getting more contacts and so on and so forth.
But why choose Kajabi?
I think just because I thought it was, you know, professional and easy to use. It's also, you know, speaking to, you know, some of the leading lights in this particular industry, some of the people who I know have made significant amounts of money and continue to do so every month. That's what they use. Because I've been using Infusionsoft for many, many years, I still use Infusionsoft, and I've linked it together with Zapier so that the two speak to each other, so that when somebody signs up to my one of my programs on Kajabi, they automatically get added into Infusionsoft, which automatically sends them an email welcoming them, and then automatically a week later sends them a follow-up, how you doing, that type of thing. So it's a way the two things do work together. One of the biggest problems that I see in small business is the word obscurity. You know, nobody's ever heard of us. And what I think our objective as small business owners is to expand that world. You know, I want to be world famous. You know, I want to be like, you know, Nike or Apple, you know, so that in my industry, when people come to, you know, marketing, business advice, I want to get me to that level. You know, my aim is to help as many small businesses as I can. And I can't help them if they haven't heard of me. And so, you know, when I hear people talking about, you know, well, Facebook's not for business, and I hear people on LinkedIn say, well, you know, I don't want to overdo it, so I post on there once a week. Once a week ain't gonna do it for you. You know, you've got to be there. You know, you've got to take massive action. Yeah. So we work with three groups of people who don't have the time to do their own marketing. So everything we've been talking about today, we can help you with. We can help you by doing this for you. The second thing we do is to train and mentor you. So if you're not yet, you know, in a position where you know and understand all this stuff, then we can work with you on an ongoing basis. And the third way is to train you. So we run workshops, be it online or in our offices in Basingstoke, or we can come to you to run workshops. So if we can help you in any way, we'd obviously love to do so. Thank you ever so much for listening, and thanks again to Steve and the team here for inviting me again onto Business Connections Live. Thank you.
I tell you what, a terrific program. If you get an opportunity, do watch that one, and also watch the one the week before as well. We had Philip Calvert on. He was talking about how to utilise LinkedIn and to get the most out of that. Now, between LinkedIn and maybe using Facebook as well, and last week's program, there's a business there, surely. And it's the kind of thing that we should all be thinking about. It's interesting, in the news today, M&S are actually shutting down some of their stores because the high street is just losing its traction power these days. So here we are with an opportunity now now to really do something online and have something that's got a bit of worth on it. There is a lot of noise out there. There's no two ways about it. If you are thinking about putting a course up, there is a lot of noise. But one interesting, I was watching, I watch hours of this rubbish. I was watching somebody who was going on about the fact, well, what do you do if you go online and you find that there is a course out there, your course, effectively, you've come up with an idea and you go to research it, and what you end up finding is that everybody's doing it. Does that mean you then don't do that course? No, the answer is you do the course, but you do it better. You do it with your own flair. You do it with your own opportunities. I think it's a fantastic opportunity. Check out Kajabi. And thank you very much to Kajabi for coming on and commenting on the program. But do check out Kajabi, check out Teachables as well. There are a whole host of others. You mentioned Udemy, of course, yeah, which is the daddy of some of the... It's been around for a long time, Udemy, but Udemy changed their method of operandi a little while back, and I don't think you make enough money out of that one. So Kajabi or Teachables, I think, are the two that you should be considering if you're thinking about putting out there an online course, particularly if you have a list. And there's been a lot about lists just recently. GDPR, of course, comes into force this weekend. Kind of dates the program instantly, but GDPR, do you know, of all the GDPR information, we've got more about GDPR later, but of all the GDPR emails I've received about staying on people's lists, the only people that I feel have got it right so far are Prezzo. So Prezzo, well done to you. Yes, I will continue to still visit your restaurants. And my free lunch, please send my voucher to the following address. Anyway, listen, if you're enjoying today's program, if you've got a comment on today's program, don't forget you can watch all the shows. It's dead easy to do that. All you got to do, if you want to get in contact with us, is drop us an email to this address. It is studio@businessconnectionslive.com. You can always give us a call if you'd like to see a show like this one about your organisation, your business, whatever. I mean, it won't be as good as Dexter's because he is a man that's got all the bases covered. Then you can give us a ring on 01784 256 777. You can follow our stream of consciousness on Twitter at BCL Business TV. You can also comment on the programmes as well by going to our Facebook, where we stream live every week at Facebook.com/Business Connection Live. But the best place to go, the place to go, is businessconnectionslive.com. Go to the website. You've got over 300 hours of business programming there. And if you want to raise your profile, if you want to be on the show, if you're somebody that's got something to say, if you are an expert in your field, get in touch with us here. Boy, have we got a deal for you. You're watching Business Connections Live. My guest on today's show is Dexter Moscow, and we're talking about the Moscow method and how to sell yourself without selling. That is the hardest bit, isn't it? How to sell yourself without selling.
Yes, because people hate being sold to. The old methods, the American methods. Yeah.
Really? Don't you? Aren't there moments when you think, they're selling to me now and they're doing it well? And then you stand back and you go, I'm enjoying this.
Do you think so? I think if you can see the joins, then... no, as I said before, I think people are so well informed now that they know when they're being sold a bill of rights. And so I think that it is important. It's consultancy, but it's consultancy in such a way that engages people, and it sounds very strange to say this in a business world, but to be entertained by people. And one of the main reasons...
Is it edutainment or something?
Yeah, it could be.
It's education and entertainment.
Entertainment.
Or whatever it is, yes.
Yeah. Because people buy into that when they're being entertained, when they're being told something. You know the greatest motivation for people to buy something?
No, what is the greatest motivation for people to buy something?
I'm pleased you asked that question. FOMO.
Who?
Fear of missing out. If somebody is being told something that they're not doing or other people are doing, that's the greatest motivation to buy.
I love it. We're going to talk about the Moscow method because that's what the book's all about. But let's look at the Moscow method. Did you just put the system together so it tied in with your name?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, understanding the power of Moscow.
Yes.
Mindset. Let's start there. What does that mean?
Mindset, and we did talk about it before, people are very fearful of standing up and speaking, public speaking. Some people are very nervous even going into a pitching situation. And what I maintain, it's the mindset. People are thinking, am I going to make a fool of myself? Am I going to stumble over my words? Am I going to say the wrong thing? Am I going to lose credibility? Now, that's all about us. Mindset is when you think, what is it that these people want to know? Is what I'm going to offer them of value, and how do I craft it so that it gives them value? So the mindset is not internal, it's external. And when you start thinking about what people need and how you can deliver that, it changes the mindset. It reduces the anxiety level. And under the Moscow Method chapter, under the M chapter, it is about how do you control those nerves. One of my favourite guys, Julian Ballantyne, who was on QVC, he used to say this: it's not about subduing the butterflies, it's getting them to fly in formation. So that we need the energy, the adrenaline kick to be able to make a good impression, a positive impression. And that's all about mindset. How do we quieten those nerves and give the information that people are going to need?
Do you, when it comes to the customer, do you not feel that customers enjoy the buying process? I knew somebody that would buy regularly from shopping channels and never open the packages, because what the bit they enjoyed was the buying it. And the linguistics that are used on TV shopping channels is very much a case of limited stock. So we've got 5% left. Well done, you've got yours.
Yes.
Well done. Congratulations, you got in there in time.
Yes.
Like it's a game show.
Yes.
No, you walk around Sainsbury's, other supermarkets are available, but you walk around Sainsbury's, and when you get to the cashier, they don't go, well done, you've got your Rice Krispies, congratulations.
Yes.
It's a different area, it's a different way of speaking. The linguistics are like a game show nearly,
yes,
that they use on television. But in day-to-day life, when you're talking to somebody across a desk, can you really use those kind of linguistics with them?
I think you can, because it is about the emotional connection. I think you mentioned before that the problems that the high street has, and we know it isn't necessarily about the product, it's about the service. It's about how people are treated. So what would happen if we went into Marks and Spencer's, who, as you say, are closing stores, and as we left the shop, somebody turned around and says, thank you so much for shopping at Marks and Spencer's. We hope to see you again soon. Now, that may be a bit trite, but if we have a shopping experience, which is what QVC offers, or any of those shopping channels offers, any situation in which you acknowledge the value of that client, that customer, they have a different perception. And it's all about perception.
And of course, people like Disney, of course, they are classic, because they were the first, weren't they, to bring it to the UK?
Yes.
But, however, because we talked about customer experience before on the programme,
yes,
and what we were talking there, I can't remember Jerry's surname, which is awful, but someone will tell me in a moment. Ryanair today have announced record profits for the service that they provide, even though 6 months ago they were cancelling flights like it was going out of fashion and there was nothing anyone could. So there's a company that's saying there is no customer service here, step away from the gate. Yes. There is no customer service, yet they are announcing huge profits because they've got a commodity or a product that people really want. So what's important? Is it the customer experience, the whole theatre of buying, or is it just that you've got something that somebody wants and they'll buy it from you?
That is
high, sell it cheap.
Yes, and that is it, isn't it? It's about the price element there. I think in terms of what the average retailer does, what the average business person does, they don't just want one hit. They want a continuing relationship. And that has to be born out of good customer service. And I think that's the example. Why is Amazon doing so well? Because they do what they say they would do. If you want it in 24 hours, we'll get it to you in 24 hours.
It's instant gratification. And in many cases, if you order it in the morning, they'll get it then in the afternoon.
Yes, and we'll deliver on Sunday.
How do we explain things like, if you go on YouTube, I'm just pushing the boundaries here, but you go on YouTube and what you see is you see people who are doing box openings. I've received my new box from Samsung. here's what you get in the box. Why is there such a big drive behind things like that, box openings?
It's amazing, isn't it? And I think it is...
Is it because we're old?
Or is it just purely that that person is taking it out of the box, they're using it, they're showing us how to use it, and it's very interesting, this whole GDPR situation, where people are now saying, should I send an email, should I do email marketing? The reality is that YouTube is the marketplace, and that's about connecting with people. I know it's a distant connection, but it's still face-to-face. It's talking to people. It's saying, look, I've just got this, and I'm going to open it up, and I'm so excited about this. Let me tell you about it.
Share the excitement.
Share the excitement.
All right, so it's getting the mindset right.
Yes.
It's getting the mindset right. And which kind of leads us on then to the objective.
Yes.
And it's what we kind of touched at the beginning. Sometimes the presentation doesn't get to either doesn't get to the objective or doesn't get to the objective quick enough.
And the objective is a shared situation. We know what our objective is. It's about selling what we're selling, and selling in inverted commas, because it could be about us, we're selling ourselves. But it has to be a mutual objective. What is it that they want out of it? And this book is a manual to how to create a selling presentation. There's lots of people who are standing up and presenting, and at the end of their presentation, nothing happens. So it's about understanding what that objective is, talking about their objective as well, which means doing research. It means going on LinkedIn. It means going on the internet to find out what's happening for that individual and that company. And then when you do that, when you have that mutual objective, you can lead them to, again in inverted commas, a buying situation, whatever that may be, commodity, service, or just us. So objective is so important because it is not just about us.
All right then, so that's mindset.
Yes.
Objective.
Yes.
The S, what does that stand for?
That's sensory acuity.
Now that's you just made the words up to fit in with your name. So what does that mean?
Sensory acuity is being aware of how people perceive information and receive information. We know that there are different personality types. There are some people who will only want bullet point information, and those tend to be the directors of companies, the CEOs of companies, who haven't got the time to listen to a whole long sales spiel. So they want to know information very quickly. There are others that listen to the words very carefully. So some people are visual, some people will listen. Some people want to be emotionally connected. And actually, that's where we want them most of the time, regardless of their personality types. So sensory acuity is being aware, seeing the micro movements, seeing if somebody is putting their hand in their head and then they're not really listening.
My body language is I'm intrigued.
Yes, so it's being aware of those situations. So sensory acuity, and there's a lot of information out there, NLP, disc profiling, personality profiling. We need to know what the different types of personality are so that we can craft our message for them. So, and you can't do that, again, coming back to PowerPoint, if you work in a darkened room or a reduced light room and people are focused on the screen, they're not looking at you and you're not looking at them. So how can you have that sensory awareness, whether you're losing them, how you need to re-engage with them, how to ask questions of them. So all of that is bound up in that sensory acuity, sensory awareness.
Is it techniques or a style that you are born with, or is it something, do you feel these processes can be learned so that they don't look false?
Yes, and that's a very interesting point you've made. If you are caught up in the process, then it looks false. If the process becomes part of you, and hands up here, I am very process driven. So a lot of the things that are in this book are the templates, the processes, the words that I use to engage and to do. I work with these on a day-by-day basis. I'm speaking to clients and I use these processes. And these are what has created the success. This is why a lot of it is case study and then exercises. So it's a story about what I do, it's the case study of what has been achieved, and then it's the example, the exercise that you then go and duplicate that. So yes, I believe people can be taught, but it only starts to work when it becomes part of you.
When it becomes something second nature.
Yes.
Okay, so we've worked our way through. That's the M, the O and the S. We've got more from Dexter to come in just a few moments' time on this edition of Business Connections Live. We're talking to Dexter.
Everybody
Dexter,
does.
I know, Dexter Moscow. Not easy to get your teeth around. We're talking about the Moscow method and how to sell yourself without selling. Good to have your company as always here on a Monday, and of course, as I said earlier on, just to place it in context, we are just days away from the introduction to GDPR. There are a lot of people out there that are trying desperately. I don't know about you, but my inbox has been filled with people saying, please, please, please opt in again. I've already opted in. If you don't opt in again, you'll never hear from us again. And you know what? That is a really appealing strategy because, quite frankly, there are so many people out there that I don't want to hear from again, and it'll be good. But have you done exactly the same thing? And is that the right process that you should have been doing? As you said, GDPR just around the corner. Interesting piece of news before we watch a little bit of Linda Bazant. CPS, they fined this is the prosecution service, the Crown Prosecution Service have been fined £325,000 after losing victim interview videos. The Crown Prosecution Service fined £325,000 by the Information Commissioner's Office after they lose some police recordings. The DVDs contained recordings of interviews with 15 victims. Second penalty imposed on CPS following the loss of sensitive video recordings. So we've got one state organisation fining another state organisation, and this is before GDPR actually comes into force. So what have you been doing about GDPR, and do you need to do anything really at all? Have you been already getting your database together in following the spirit of GDPR already? We've all been under the data protection regulations for years, but, you know, honestly, is it going to change? Linda Bazant joined me on the program. She is a GDPR consultant, speaker, an all-round good person, and she gives some really good advice when it comes to GDPR. Have a look at this.
I'm Linda Bazant. I'm a barrister and GDPR consultant and trainer. My website is linda@lindabazant.com. I've been talking to you today about GDPR. And one of the things that are key here is that an awful lot of businesses are burying their head in the sand and pretending it isn't happening. It is happening. It's got nothing to do with Brexit. After the 25th of May 2018, when it becomes law, it will continue to be law even after March 2019, when we leave the EU. You need to look at where your data is coming from, what you are doing with it, and who you are sharing it with. You need to make absolutely certain that your privacy notices on your website are right up to date to give the information about exactly what you're doing with the information that you collect on your websites. You need to make sure that your employees understand exactly what the implications of GDPR are, and that you have all of the appropriate training in place, that you have consent for marketing, unambiguous and explicit consent for marketing, and you also need to remember that there are some cases in which your legitimate business interest allows you to use personal data. It is a big minefield, but you do need to understand that you've already got the Data Protection Act, and you should be data protection compliant anyway. GDPR requires you to just do a lot of tweaking, and if you need help, ask someone to come and help you. You've probably done an awful lot of the work yourself already. You just need someone to get you over the finish line.
Terrific show. There are a number of shows about GDPR on the website. If you could just go to businessconnectionslive.com, you'll find all the programs there. Just type in Linda Bazant, they'll all come up, the different programs. That was Where Is Your Personal Data Coming From? And that was Business Connections Live 215. It went out at the beginning of the year. And when people weren't really talking about GDPR, there were mumblings going on. But go to the website. There it is on the screen right now. Go to the website, type in Linda Bazan. She's also got a great sequence of videos as well. If you go to lindabazant.com and you just type Linda Bazant, that's LINDABAZANT.com. If you go to her website, you can sign up and she'll send you 16 thought-provoking short little videos, things that you need to be thinking about. And something that she said to me, she said, Steve, the thing about GDPR is, you know, when it comes in, this is not the end of GDPR. This is just the beginning. We are now coming to the end of the prelude, the pre-sequel. So this is, it really does, when it starts, and it's going to be with us forever. And then, just to give us a bit more of a kicking when it comes to our security, e-privacy comes in at the end of the year. And that'll give us more of a kicking with our databases and our mailing lists and everything like that. And Linda will be doing programs on that as well, just to give you the heads up on what you need to be aware of. If you are sending out emails to people saying, please resubmit, there's probably no need for you to be doing that. And you're actually shooting yourself in the foot. Not that we care, but we thought we'd let you know. You're watching Business Connections Live. Today we are talking to Dexter Moscow, and we're talking about the Moscow method and how to sell yourself without selling. He's got a brand new book out. It's available on Amazon at the moment, The Moscow Method. The book is here. You can go on there. It's got good reviews. If you're looking for a book that's going to take you through the process of how to sell, this is the book for you. These are tried and proven ways, techniques, sequences that you can use. He uses them with great success. You can use them too. And there is no harm in reading a book like this and replicating what is said in the book and using it in your own business, because that is what business is all about. And we're all, at the end of the day, when we're trying to buy something, as customers, we're all expecting to be, I suppose, to be sold to at times.
Absolutely.
We're talking about the method. So we worked our way through mindset, objective, sensories, and now we're on to the C of the cow at the end. So the C stands for what? Congruency.
And this is so important. And first of all, coming back to your discussion about GDPR, for me, this is a golden opportunity now, and for lots of people out there, because you cannot just email now. You cannot just send out a mailing shot. YouTube certainly is very, very useful, but it's about communication. And I think one hesitates to say this, but there's a lot of the younger generation who are so involved.
Get this wrong, she'll be in the door, you know that.
Right, I know.
Yes, but you're saying a lot of the younger generation. Yes.
Social media is their means of communication. And we know, and I think this is what the GDPR effect is, that there's going to have to be a lot more face-to-face communication. We're going to have to be able to make, this is my phrase, assumption kills communication. If we assume we know what things are needed by our customers and clients, then we're going to lose out each time. So we're going to have these conversations.
And of course the government are saying at the moment, aren't they, they're trying to reduce the amount that the children are on social media for. Yes. They're saying, what, a couple of hours a day?
Yes. I mean, friends, what friends? They've never met them. So I mean, having said that, I use social media, but I use it as a tool to be able to then meet with people, communicate with people.
Well, it's interesting. So which platform do you use? Which one do you get the most success from?
I use LinkedIn a lot. And I use LinkedIn in a particular way. And thank you for asking me this, because if you write an article on LinkedIn, by definition, it's quite a long read. And you may get 300-500 people viewing that. If you write a post, which by definition, again, is much shorter, it's about 1,300 characters, there has to be a key message. The title, again, is very important to engage with people. And you have to be able to give people information that is of value, not just, I'm great, have a look at what I've been doing. It has to add real value. And when you put that kind of post up with a photograph as well, and it can be photograph it has to be a photograph that's relevant, then you can get upwards of 3,000 people. And the important thing is you get comments, and people then send it to other groups. So your reach is very, very wide. So for me, LinkedIn is very good. If I want to get information out very quickly, then it's Twitter. So I will give key messages about something that is beneficial to people, and then that gets retweeted. So it's about reaching a bigger market. Networking is all about that. It's not selling and pitching to the person who's standing in front of you, but the army of people that are standing behind them. And so LinkedIn, Facebook is for me a family situation. But again, with Facebook now, a lot of companies are using it to get their message across. That's the key. Get the right message across.
A lot of people are using Facebook groups now.
Yes.
And very interesting. For years, I have turned my back on Facebook.
Me too.
And I think I got that wrong.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think Facebook is becoming more and more popular. It's interesting as well, with all the news that's going on about the data sharing and the analytics and Cambridge Analytica and all of that. Mm-hmm. There has been no change at all in the usage of Facebook.
Isn't that amazing?
Nobody cares about what's happening to their data.
But they should be cautious.
And they should be cautious. Very, very cautious. Well, anyway, so we're up to, meanwhile, back on the show,
yes, C. Congruency. Now, congruency, simply, it is how we look, what we say, and how we say it are so important. One has to be congruent. And it comes to what you were saying before. If we're just using a process and that's all people see, then there's this, and I hesitate to use the words again, but there's a bullshit monitor. And people know instinctively if you're telling the truth or not. Refer back to QVC, which is a great learning case for me for many years. You and I have both presented and worked with presenters there. And what you find is if there is an actor who is selling a product, they are taking a role. But if you get somebody who's designed it, manufactured it, lived with it, then there is such congruent behaviour. What they say, how they say it, and how they look when they say it are absolutely congruent. And I cite the example of Clinton. He was congruent in so many ways, but when he turned around and said, "I did not have sexual relations with that woman," we knew he wasn't being congruent, and so we lost all faith in him. So congruency is the tone of voice, dressing appropriately in front of an audience that we want to engage, be that a selection panel, and it is just being aware of how we stand. So it's body language, it's voice tonality, it's pace of voice as well. If we're sitting with somebody who is very thoughtful and ponderous in their speech and is speaking very slowly, and we say, "Well, yeah, I'm going to tell you this because you're going to be so excited about it," there's absolute breaking congruency. So that's what that's about.
It's really important. Dress, that's an interesting thing as well. Are the days of the suit and tie, are they gone?
Yes, I think they are in many cases. If I am walking into a PR or an advertising agency, I would dress similar to this. And if I'm sitting there...
He's got a pair of shorts on under the desk at the moment. He came in a pair of shorts, actually.
I did. Truth is true. But actually, it's interesting you say that. Now, had I sat here with those shorts and not changed, perhaps my business, my perception of myself would have been different. So that's why I put on a pair of trousers.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I always wear trousers. That's what I would say when you're being interviewed on the telephone. Okay, so that's tying yourself in. That's nearly mirroring, isn't it, what the person that you're talking to is all about? A lot of that,
yes, absolutely.
Okay, do you use a lot of NLP?
Yes. But I use NLP not... and there's this...
First of all, I suppose there are people watching going, NLP,
don't know what it is.
What's that? Neuro-linguistic programming.
Yes.
What does it mean? What's that all about then?
Well, supposedly, it's a made-up name, actually. Richard Bandler, who invented the whole process, when he was stopped, because he was an absolute nutcase, but a brilliant nutcase, he actually was kicked out of, I think it was Berkeley University, and as he drove out of the gates, the guards saw that there were lots of books on the floor of his car, and he said, "What's this about, Mr. Bandler?" And he looked down, and there was a book on neurology, there was linguistics and programming. So he said, "Well, NLP." And so it's a made-up name. What it really stems from is Milton Erickson, who was an interventionist therapist using hypnosis, but using words to elicit reactions from people. So the NLP really is about understanding, again, understanding people. The thread that runs through my processes is truly our become interested in other people and relate to other people, because then it doesn't become a selling situation. It becomes communication at a deep psychological level that you understand what their needs are. So
I think one of the things that I found the most interesting about doing direct response, and I know that we've obviously been in the same situation,
yeah,
is how manipulative the audience are. And I know that's a dreadful thing to say, but if you say on screen, I don't want you to phone now, I will tell you when to phone,
yes,
they will stop phoning until you tell them
yes
to phone.
And isn't it
and it's really
interesting?
like a command, it's a trigger word nearly.
Yes, and that the triggers. A lot of people are concerned about NLP when they
QVC are going, no, we don't want this going out.
But it's true.
And the other shopping channels as well, you know, Ideal World, the channel, all the others.
Yes, all of the others are. But, you know, when you look at programmes like Britain's Got Talent or The X Factor, it's the backstories that present the people so that they buy in to those people. We are manipulated, and we know that we're being manipulated. We know that our heartstrings are being pulled. That's the modern age.
The modern age, order. O for order.
Yes.
Tell us more about order.
Order, I think we touched on it before. People know what they want to say. They have to hone it so that they make sure it has the message for the audience. But how do you begin? And how do you end so that it isn't just a great presentation, but it's a selling presentation? It's people then are queuing for you and saying, especially if you're doing a front of room presentation, and that's part of what I'm suggesting here. If you're doing lots of networking, don't work the room, command the room. Grab 15 minutes at the front of the room so that you can expand on what you do. But it isn't about what you do, it's what you do for others. So order is, how do you start? How do you keep re-engaging with the audience? Because I think that a lot of research now is showing that it's the first 7 to 30 seconds maximum where you've got to grab the audience. Then you've got to re-engage with them. It's called an attention reset button. And you've got to keep on hitting that button every 7 to 10 minutes to really keep their interest. So you need to ask questions, or you can use a prop. There are lots of different mechanisms whereby you re-engage that. So order is about, when do you use those mechanisms?
So when you're on stage, there's one technique that is used by some presenters. They walk on stage, they'll say the big statistic, the big earth-shaking, whatever it's going to be, piece of information. But the other thing they'll say is they'll look at somebody in the front row and go, what's your name? And then all of a sudden you put everybody on order that you could be spoken to as well.
It's a device, it's a fan. If you
very powerful, actually.
Again, it's if you come away from PowerPoint, or if you have to have a PowerPoint presentation because there's financial information, or there's a graph, or there's an illustrative slide, the people are frightened about having dead space. And I say sometimes have a completely clear slide and walk into the light and re-engage with people. And one of the ways of re-engaging, illustrating what you've just said, if you have your awareness, if you're congruent with your audience and you see somebody at the back kind of nodding off, that's the person you ask the question of. Because everybody else, they can't see well, you know, from a theatrical point of view, if you look at the back of the cinema or the theatre, everybody thinks you're looking at them. And it's the same thing here. So if you ask that person that question and then they answer, then everybody else thinks, oh my goodness, we've got to be aware because he's going to ask us questions. So questioning is a very good way that is incorporated in the order of things.
Hold the thought, we've still got the W to go on this edition of Business Connections Live. Dexter Moscow is my guest today. We are talking about the Moscow method and how to sell yourself without selling. Incidentally, if you do PowerPoint presentations and you find yourself ever saying, I know you won't be able to read this because there is so much information on that slide, but if you ever find yourself saying that, then that is the wrong slide to be having up there. I saw a presentation just recently by a gentleman, and he actually told nothing smaller than, I think, 16 point, something like that, a maximum number of words on the slide. Honestly, the slide is not the presentation. You are.
Yeah.
Just remember that.
Yeah.
Okay, you're watching Business Connections Live. We'd like to thank you very much indeed for all the people that download the programme. You can watch us right across a whole host of different platforms, everything from obviously YouTube, if you're watching us on the live stream at the moment. Maybe you're on Facebook. Do leave a comment on Facebook if you're watching us there on the live stream. Ustream as well. We're also going out on Periscope at the moment. Hello there. How you doing? Next week, we'll actually give you, well, it won't be next week, won't be here next week. It's a bank holiday next week, so we take bank holidays off now. We're not going to bust a gut, but we'll be back the week after that. We like this month with the 2 bank holiday Mondays. It means that we can have a bit of a rest while we're here. However, you are downloading us on the likes of iTunes. We'd like to thank you very much. You can help us out on iTunes by leaving a star review, a 5-star review. It's that easy to do. All you got to do is this. Have a look at the programme in your iTunes account. Click on that, view in iTunes. All the programs will come up. Well, currently it's 26 programs here at the moment, ratings and reviews. Click on that, that'll take you down to the customer review, writer review. And what we need to say is, I would watch this program. Dexter was a fantastic bloke, and his system, his method really has helped sales increase. If you want to increase the sales in your business, then watch Business Connections Live. If you do that on the platform, what will happen then? The algorithm, whatever that is, on iTunes, when somebody else is watching another business program, at the end of that program, it will recommend Business Connections Live for them as well to watch, and it will grow the audience and make it even more successful. We'd like to thank you in advance for doing that, so thank you very much indeed for being part of the family that is Business Connections Live. You're watching Business Connections Live. My guest today is Dexter Moscow. We're talking about the Moscow method and how to sell yourself without selling. Don't forget, if you haven't been with us for the entire show, you can watch the program on catch up straight after the program goes out live. We've worked our way through the process so far, and we've done the M, which was, a quick recap would be good. We've done the M.
Mindset.
O.
Objective.
S.
Sensory acuity.
C.
Congruency.
O.
Order.
Finally, then, it's got to be the W.
The W.
The W. Work the room. You kind of were alluding to it there a moment or so ago. Tell us more about working the room.
I must tell you, I had a dilemma here, because really working the room should happen right at the beginning. So, but it didn't fit in with the name.
You'd have been Moscow then.
We're Moscow. But working the room, it's actually what you said about if you, especially centre stage, and you look at somebody and say, "What's your name, sir?" or "What's your name, madam?" Working the room is actually before you even step into the room, doing the LinkedIn research, finding out from the organisers, especially if you're doing a seminar or a presentation to a large group, what is the need of that group? What's the problems that they're experiencing? I did a series of masterclasses for an organisation called IDG, which is all of the members are the grocery industry, so Tesco's, Sainsbury's, Co-op, all of the major groups like that. And I wanted to find out, before I even stepped into the room, what are the problems that they were experiencing. And a lot of it was about internal communication. So rather than saying, how do you sell to your customers, it was about how do you communicate with your colleagues, how do you gain advancement. So working the room is really looking on LinkedIn, finding out what the company is talking about themselves, what the CEO has said, what the chairman's ideas are for the organisation. So that kind of information can craft the message. Then when you actually are in the room, before you even step up to the podium, what I do is I work the room. I speak to a number of people and I say, look, I'm your speaker for today, or I've been asked to come in and chat to you about a particular process. What's happening for you? What is going to be really useful for you to hear? Now, sometimes that means that I have to change what I am going to say, or add certain things in which are more relevant. So that's working the room. You note down the name of the person. You ask them permission to reference the conversation. And so when you are at the front of the room, you can see them there in the audience and say, George was telling me, and Martha was saying this to me. The effect of that, and again you'll understand this, it breaks down that fourth wall. In television terms it's the screen. In theatre it means the stage. When you break down and on a platform, it brings the audience to you. So you are no longer a presenter, you are somebody that they have spoken to, that they trust, and again, those inverted commas. So it means that if you have those names, you're closing the gap, and people... I remember on one occasion, and it's actually in the book, I was invited to go to an occupational therapist seminar, a symposium, and there were about 100 tables. So it was a big involvement and a big presentation. I went round the tables and I sat down with a few of the ladies, and the majority were ladies. And I said, I'm your presenter for today, and I've got a particular topic. What's going to be useful for you to hear? And one woman said to me, Dex, are you telling me that you're creating your presentation now? So I said, actually, yes. Because I know what I want to say, but I want to know what you need to say. So when I got up on that stage, I had already engaged with, and I took, I suppose, about 5 people I'd spoken to out of a room of hundreds. And it was very well received because, in fact, the feedback afterwards, he really wanted to understand what we needed. Relevancy is absolutely key when working the room. And so what I say, and then when you step off the podium, go round again. Was that helpful? What else do you need to know? And if you've done your job properly, you don't need to close people. They will come up and say, do you know what, Steve? We need to sit down and chat. And that's the whole essence of the Moscow method. It's vested in what their needs are so that you don't have to close. They will do the business with you.
They'll do the close for you.
Yeah.
All right, well, we've worked our way through Moscow. That's a very interesting story, working the room. Let's just go back, because there are some other key areas which kind of summarise what we've been talking about. Creating, the structure, the prepare and deliver, which is really the Moscow method in essence.
Yes,
isn't it?
yes.
Is it just worth working our way down those key things again?
Yes.
So just as a reminder then, before you do your key takeaways, which is you're going to be kind of doing it twice.
Yes.
So create then. So create.
Create means, again, to think of what you need to say, drawn on your experience so that it is not borrowed from somebody else. So often we see a process that is taken from somebody else and then you try and make it your own. It's about that storytelling. So being creative in the stories that you need to tell, putting them in concise format. I was working with somebody the other day who's going for an interview as a CFO, a major organisation, and he tends to go off on one. And I said, OK, there is a process in the book which allows you to be creative about what your story is. And it's 3 elements to it. So it is about incident, what is the overarching experience of that story, the action, what you actually did, and the benefit that you derive personally and that the organisation that you'll be speaking to, perhaps the individual, will gain the benefit of that. So being creative, create the right stories.
I like that. Structure. Your presentation to gain maximum engagement and buy-in.
If you like, that's the order bit. So how do you structure it so that you have those pattern interrupts, those attention reset buttons? How do you start with perhaps a startling piece of information? It could be a quote. One of the mechanisms I use, because I always say to whoever I'm working with, invite me to the front of the room. Give them a little idea, a thumbnail of who I am. If I'm going in presenting to a larger organisation, I will take a colleague with me and I will say, let me introduce you and you introduce me. And then, especially then, it means that I'm not bragging about myself. They are gaining a perception of me. And obviously, hopefully, it's a positive perception. If you're at the front of the room and you get invited, the mechanism I use, because normally people are polite and they clap. So I said, you know, it always amazes me how an audience always claps before they even know what they're going to get. So then there's a little bit of a laugh that goes around. It breaks the ice, and then you're into that. So structure is important. What you say, how do you re-engage, how do you end with something that's important?
All right then, prepare. Prepare.
Yes, prepare. And thank you for doing that. That is absolutely key. Ask the questions, speak to individuals. When I'm working with a new organisation, and there's one major accountancy practice I'm going into, I am interviewing, and in fact, again, I will be interviewing because I've already done one workshop for them. I'm speaking to every individual partner saying, okay, you understand a little bit of the process that we're going to use because we've met before. What is going to be helpful for you? So my preparation is about asking people, researching people, getting information online as much as I can to prepare so that I know when I'm in the room, if they take me on a different tangent because that's what's important to them, I've prepared that.
Okie dokie, and deliver it with power and impact.
Impact, that's right. It goes right the way back to where we were discussing before with QVC. And, you know, some people narrow their eyes when they think QVC, American shopping channel, what relevance does that have for the corporate world? And it's about delivery. It's about how we look, how we sound, how we stand, and are we really connecting? Delivery is so important, and so often people don't think about how they are presenting themselves, because as we know, people will make a decision about you before you even open your mouth.
Linda's got a very good technique. She's got a pair of glasses, her pointing glasses, and she points at you like this. Do you know what you're doing? That's what she said. Do you know what you're doing?
Yeah.
She doesn't need glasses. Actually she does, but do you know what you're doing? Listen, it's been a real insight today. It's been absolutely fascinating and very, very enjoyable as well, for that matter as well. And it's also, I love the resonance between the whole shopping TV thing.
Yes.
Because thoroughly enjoyed all of that.
Yes,
and,
great experience.
And, you know, there's nothing like standing on the screen. I think the thing about when you're standing on the screen that no presenter, whoever does it, realises, and the real difference there is the engagement bit. If you're on screen, there is a chance that there will be a monitor somewhere or somebody in your ear telling you how much you're selling. That is your engagement level.
Yeah.
And when they're engaged and you're hearing that it's flying out the door, I did a little bit in America, and what you can see there is how much they're selling per second.
Oh, that's frightening.
That really is
that's
engagement.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you're looking at the cameras, and behind the cameras are the monitors, and one of the monitors is showing how much per second you are selling. That really does put everything into context. Have you had people in your ear go, whatever you've just done, do it again?
Yeah, and how do you know? Because that normally there's a delay, isn't there? 2 or 3 minutes. So, my goodness, what did I say?
Just done?
Yeah.
Yeah. OK, Dexter, as always, we always ask people to sum up at the end of the programme what they've been talking about. Please say who you are, where you're from.
Right.
And the key things that we need to take away from this. Straight down camera number 4. I know you're an old hand at doing stuff. Oh, there we go. We're just moving you around there. And the airways, Dexter, are all yours.
Thank you. If you have been listening, thank you very much. My name is Dexter Moscow. As we said before, that is my real name. My company is Audience Dynamics, and really that is what it's all about, understanding the audience and how you relate to them. The 3 take-homes are 3 E's. In fact, there's a 4th E. But the 3 E's are this: engage with people, and that means understanding them. Enlightening them. Tell them something that they don't know, something that will really be of benefit for them. And this sounds strange to say in a corporate environment, but people need to be entertained. They need to be able to buy into what we're saying. And the 4th E is to be excited. If you're not excited about what you do and how you can help people, how the hell are you going to make others excited about you?
Great advice, great guest. Terrific book. If you want to get hold of the book is The Moscow Method. It is a fantastic read. It's an easy read as well. It's written in an entertaining way, and he works his way through the Moscow Method. Also, there are paragraph chapters on networking, further thoughts, the epilogue acknowledgements about the author as well. How to Sell Without Selling. It's a great book, and you can get it on Amazon if you wish. Would you autograph one for us today?
With the greatest of pleasure.
We'll give one of the copies away. All you got to do is I'd like to sell myself without selling. If you just put that in one of the comments, or you put it on Facebook, I'd like to sell myself without selling. If you put that in one of the comments along with who you are, we'll get one of the copies of these books to you, autographed and signed by Dexter as well. So I want to sell myself without selling. If you can put that down, that would be fantastic. Listen, I hope you've enjoyed today. Thank you very much indeed.
Steve, lovely to see you.
It's been a really great show as well.
For me too, thank
you.
Who
we got coming up in the future on the programme? Well, coming up on future programmes, we've got Taz Thornton, an inspirational speaker, author and motivator. It's going to be on the programme. Peter Liner, he's the chairman of ABLE. He'll be joining us. He's from the Academy of Business Leaders and Entrepreneurs. Doug Piddott, Intermedia Communication Solutions, web meeting technology, great piece of kit. This actually, if you're ever doing any web meetings and you're looking for a camera that takes a 180-degree view of the room, and then when somebody talks within the room, it zooms in on them. Really clever technology. He's going to be coming on the program, and also Rachel Wild from Monochrome is going to be joining us, along with the #1 UK motivational speaker is Brad Burton. That wraps it up for us today. Listen, get out in the sunshine, have a great day. From Dexter and myself, Steve Harlan, have yourself a fantastic day till we do it in 2 weeks' time. See you then. Take care. Bye for now. Bye-bye.